So just when you think things can't get crazier, they do. On March 15th, a team of researchers, including Filippo Bionde, came across what appears to be a massive structure underneath the Giza pyramid. And this structure would extend 2 kilometers deep underneath the pyramid. And this is wild. This is one of the most life-changing and mind-blowing discoveries ever, if true.
Aquí están los pilotes.
And right now, everyone on social media is talking about this.
You are literally not going to believe what they've just found underneath the Khafre, the middle pyramid in Giza.
We're not going to believe what they found, not only inside the Great Pyramids, but underneath the Great Pyramids. This discovery is going to change everything that we know about, well, everything.
What has just been announced in relation to the pyramids at the Giza plateau and the plateau itself is so incredible and narrative shattering that I have been sitting here for the last hour trying to wrap my head around the implications of what we were just told.
The implications of this, if real, are huge. There's a bunch of crazy theories that the pyramids were not built by humans, that there's advanced and ancient technology that was used to build not only the pyramids but a bunch of ancient structures.
And described first by Christopher Dunn as a Crookes tube, perhaps an electrical bulb. And again, snake throughout every culture, from Asia through Africa, represents electricity, kundalini energy. Here, it looks like it's what somebody said, a condenser, because it's working with electricity. And again, we're not talking wireless electricity, because it is plugged in. We have a creature here. We don't know what this creature is, but the important thing is what the texts say. This is a warning that this is a knowledge, a power that can be abused. So we say...
And if this structure, this massive structure under the pyramids are real, then this could change the entire history as we know it. So I decided to dig deeper into this, and I came across information that may suggest that this is all fake, to push a narrative, to discredit researchers, and I came across videos, articles, and information that suggests that this could be real, that there's maybe something, or more than just something, underneath the Giza plateau. But what is it? Now, there's a couple of strange things that I also came across. I found out that the entire topic is already being censored all over Reddit, where every post about the recent structures found beneath the pyramid are being deleted. I also found out that the community notes on Jay Anderson's post on Twitter, which has 10 million views, it has been removed. The community notes said that the information was fake, and now it's been completely removed. So let's start with the basic, and that's where it all begins on March 19th. With Project Unity on Twitter, and he says, groundbreaking findings on the Giza Pyramid complex could rewrite human history.
So this is pretty much breaking news because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who was studying the Great Pyramid of Giza with a non-invasive technology that was first developed by Filippo Bionde and Corrado Malanga, called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. So this was used to explore the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this method leverages the analysis of micro movements typically generated by background seismic activity to achieve a high resolution, full 3D tomographic imagery of the pyramid's interior and subsurface components. The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers.
So at this point, there's a lot of people coming up with the craziest theories that maybe this is some sort of battery or some sort of harnessing system that the pyramids had to harness energy, or even an underground city of some sort.
Internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. Utilizing high-resolution radar images from Capella Space and Umbra, which are 2 private companies that specialize in satellite-based synthetic aperture radar imaging.
Yep. Checks out. Cutting-edge space systems, from refined mission solutions to Bassin-class data. Okay. SAR data. There you go.
This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza Pyramid. But the most shocking discovery lies beneath the surface. Below ground level, radar tomography has identified vertical cylindrical structures extending for hundreds of meters beneath the pyramid. There are 8 of these cylindrical wells arranged in 2 parallel rows, descending to an astonishing depth of 648 meters.
So I did find the original file, and this is it. This is what we're talking about. This is the official press release by Corrado Malanga, Armando May, and Filippo Biondi, which a lot of people are categorizing this as fake, and others are saying that this is the real deal, but we are going to find out. This is the Confrey Project document, an abstract of the conference on March 16th. This SAR technology that was used to scan the pyramids, and apparently they found a bunch of chambers that were uncategorized before this scanning system was used, and these are the cylindrical structures that were found beneath the pyramid. As you can see, the 8 cylindrical structures identified in our tomographic images appear as vertical wells, hollow inside, surrounded by descending spiral pathways. Would you look at that? And this is the base of the pyramid, I guess. This is the extent. This is wild. Look at that. This is how long these cylindrical structures are. And I guess that this is something that they found also. This is amazing. And what appears to be, I'm not sure what this is, but it looks like non-natural structures, as they state. What is this? Is this an entire city down there?
Even more intriguing, at the base of these structures are 2 massive cubic formations measuring approximately 80 meters in diameter. The tomographic data suggests that these are vertical wells with intricate spiral pathways. Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water.
So again, this stumbles across a theory that a lot of researchers and archaeologists have, including Brian Forrester, that the Egyptians did not build the pyramids.
We don't talk about much. We see this, the tunnel itself is all carved in the bedrock.
Right.
So imagine if we turned off this light now, we're not going to be even able to see our palms right ahead of us.
Right.
So imagine that you are actually doing this, the challenge of this work in the dark. What you're going to be using? A flame? There is no even markings of anything dark. And there are no openings in the ceiling.
In this specific video uploaded by Brian Forrester 10 years ago, he goes over to Saqqara, Egypt, and in there he goes to the Serapeum. Actually, he goes underground, the Serapeum. Now, the Serapeum in Egypt is an ancient underground burial complex near Saqqara, and it's supposedly dedicated to the sacred Api bulls. The lid of the tombs weigh approximately 100 tons, and they are located 12 meters underground inside the Serapeum. And there's this complex systems of tunnels carved into the bedrock. Thing is, things get really strange and well engineered inside the Serapeum. Let's just say too perfectly engineered.
To be other devices, I believe, in this place, which we can see that there is a carving in the wall to house something else. I believe it could be a false door, or what we know as the false door, which is another device that can possibly regulate frequency and sound.
There's also the fact that the lids itself weighs at least 50 tons each. We would need at least 2,000 men to drag these things down. How was that done in the dark? There are no markings on the walls of fire or any type of tool that they used to light up the place. And there's not enough space for them to drag these things down. So how was it done? One of the theories that Brian Forrester and many other archaeologists have is that the Egyptians found the pyramids the way they were and added hieroglyphs and other things to rewrite history and make it look like they built it. And inside of the Serapeum, there are certain things that may actually prove such a thing actually happened.
If they had the technology to be able to do the cutting, moving, shaping, and finishing of the box, then they would have had the capability of elegant and eloquent carving of the hieroglyphics, and that's not the case. So clearly what you're looking at, you're looking at a super ancient series of these boxes, and later they were discovered by the dynastic Egyptians in situ, underground here, and the dynastic Egyptians carved the hieroglyphs on the surface.
Well, it really, Brian, doesn't require a professional to realize the difference between how sharp the cuts are and the surface is, and how crude the writings are. Because in cases like what we see over here, for example, this is a marking of a primitive tool that could not even create a straight line on the surface.
Right.
That's so clear. It doesn't require even a professional in machining to see the difference in these surfaces.
There's also the Sphinx in Egypt, where there's this crazy theory that there's an underground city of some sort underneath it, and it was supposedly accessed by certain people and archaeologists in the past through Shaft D. The shaft's entry is nowadays forbidden, and the access has been completely blocked, even though some people have tried to access it, and here's a video of such a thing happening.
The Sphinx has been the subject of fascination for centuries. People have climbed it, scanned it, and even dug tunnels into it. But most people are still left wondering, what is inside the Great Sphinx of Giza? There are several known shafts or passages which lead directly inside. The first shaft, Shaft A, can be found on the head of the Sphinx. The hole measures approximately 5 feet square and nearly 6 feet deep. Today on the mouth of the hole is an iron trap door, blocking its entry. The next shaft is Shaft C. It sits on the back of the Sphinx, and it's a square shaft, which is said to lead to a dead end. However, the footage you'll see in a moment will disprove that entirely. And Shaft D is where it gets interesting. This shaft goes much deeper. It appears that once inside, at least the back of the Sphinx is in fact hollow. But again, this shaft appears to hit a dead end.
And here's the video by Dieselpunk Cummings 3 years ago of them actually going inside this Shaft D, which supposedly leads to a hollow part of the Sphinx that, again, supposedly leads to this underground massive space underneath it.
Alright, found some more iron staining here on the ground. So there was definitely water in this enclosure at one point.
This is them going into Shaft D.
What do you see, Adrian?
I see it. Need to go over there. Please. No.
What do you see, Adrian?
I see it. Need to go over there.
Yeah, it's been blocked. Look at that.
Okay, so that's a dead end. Here we are under the Sphinx. In one of the forbidden holes.
So what's really weird is that both entrances to these shafts have been completely blocked. It's not a dead end. Someone decided to block them for whatever reason. So it might just be that this new find by Filippo Biondi of these underground structures in the Giza Plateau maybe are not that far-fetched.
This is not all. This is the beginning of it. Not only that, at the very base of the pyramid, like ground zero of the pyramid in the center, they have found 5 of these kind of stacked chambers, which are identical, look like they're kind of identical in size and form as the king's chamber of the Khufu pyramid, the one next door. 5 of these chambers just chilling in the middle of the pyramid, and then 8 cylindrical, massive underground structures that go deep down. And what is under that? I'll show you. So 4 of these cylindrical structures dropping deep down into the earth, they go into 2 square sort of chambers.
So because of the shape of this thing, which seems to be coiled and cylindrical, there's a lot of people saying that this could be some sort of energy battery or harnessing machine or something like that. There's also others saying that this could be an underground city of some sort that was covered by sand at some point in time. There's a very interesting video by the Y-Files where he explains neatly how it is very possible that the Egyptian pyramids, the Giza pyramids, are actually a free energy device.
Nikola Tesla believed that he could harness the energy from inside the earth and transmit that power wirelessly around the world. His early experiments were successful, but his research mysteriously vanished after his death. There is no evidence left of Tesla's wireless power technology. Or is there? For years we were taught that the Great Pyramid of Giza was a tomb for a king. It wasn't.
If this is the case, it will make a lot of sense to why there are many chambers that are blocked. The access to a lot of tunnels is completely forbidden. It would also make sense to why there's a lot of people trying to control this narrative and say that this new find from Filippo Bionda is fake. Now we're going to get to that in just a few moments, and we're going to take a look into if this is really fake or not. But as people dig deeper into this, there are more things that they're finding. In 2024, this account posted this very interesting picture on Twitter. 190 miles east of Catalina Island on the ocean floor and 13 miles long. Look at that. That does not look like it's a natural shaped object, does it? Now what you're looking at is the ocean floor seen from satellite imagery. This is coming in from Google Earth. And as you can see, it seems like we have this very bizarre shaped structure. Actually, it's very symmetrical. It doesn't look like it's a natural mountain or anything like that. And just next to it, 2 pyramid-shaped mountains. Very perfectly shaped, actually. So whatever this thing is, it doesn't look like it's a natural formation. And there's a bunch of those all over the world. So something may have happened in the past, but we know nothing about it. There's also this article that was posted on September 7th, 2024. And it says, China's super radar detects plasma bubble over the pyramids in Giza. So there's a powerful LARID radar in China that can detect plasma bubbles in Earth's upper atmosphere. So in this article it states, plasma bubbles can have a significant impact on modern warfare. And there have been many related studies supported by military forces worldwide. And with the aid of the world's most powerful radar of its kind, Chinese scientists have detected plasma bubbles appearing over both the Egyptian pyramids and the Midway Islands almost simultaneously. So the idea that the Egyptian pyramids may actually be projecting or harnessing energy isn't that far-fetched.
For the first time ever, scanning technology has been used on pyramids, and the results are quite surprising. The preliminary results of the Scan Pyramids project indicate an anomaly in the 4,500-year-old Great Pyramid of Khufu.
Whatever's going on here, it was also detected by Chinese radar. And once again, the Y-Files neatly explains how he believes that these Egyptian pyramids, the Giza pyramids, may actually be some sort of power source.
Small chambers, narrow shafts, no markings at all. The way the pyramid was built and the materials used to build it suggest it had a different purpose. The king and queen's chambers were built with granite that is 85% quartz. The tunnels and passageways are also lined with quartz-rich granite. Pressure was applied to all this granite. It would generate a tremendous amount of electricity, turning the pyramid into a giant power plant. One of the most compelling cases comes from Christopher Dunn. He believes the process starts in the subterranean chamber. Below the pyramid are aquifers. As water moves through the underground cavities, sound waves are created. The frequency of these waves resonate with the Earth's natural vibration. As those waves move up through the pyramid, a process is used to magnify, focus, and convert the sound into energy. The Queen's Chamber was used for a chemical reaction that created hydrogen, and there's substantial proof of this. There are 2 interior shafts that lead to the Queen's Chamber. The northern shaft has traces of hydrochloric acid. The southern has traces of hydrated zinc chloride. Combining these 2 chemicals creates a volatile reaction that generates hydrogen. A lot of hydrogen. This hydrogen gas would flow from the Queen's Chamber through the horizontal passage and into the Grand Gallery. The Grand Gallery is also made of granite. As the hydrogen gas builds up, the pressure compresses the granite, creating electricity. This electricity also ionizes the air, increasing conductivity. Within the Grand Gallery were 27 or 28 pairs of resonators that would vibrate and emit sound. The hydrogen atoms would organize themselves into waves in sympathy with the sound waves of the gallery. These sound waves further excite the stone, creating even more electricity.
So let me check this out. Okay, so I found this over here, and in 1998, Christopher Dunn wrote a book called The Giza Power Plant. However, in a chemical diagnosis, they found sulfuric acid, not hydrochloric acid. But still, chemistry suggests that hydrogen gas could be created from chemicals found in both the southern and the northern shafts, but it could also be produced from each shaft alone. So this theory isn't that far-fetched.
The next piece of evidence is the pyramid's ability to focus EM energy. In 2018, scientists used radio waves at different frequencies to see if the Great Pyramid would interact with electromagnetic waves of a resonant length. Their experiments proved that in a resonant state, the pyramid can concentrate electromagnetic energy in the internal chambers as well as under its base. Resonance in the pyramid can be induced by radio waves with the lengths ranging from 200 to 600 meters.
Wait. Okay, so there you go. This is in 2018. Chambers in Egypt's Great Pyramid concentrates radio waves.
The closer to 200 meters, the more dramatic the effect. A year after that, in 2019, Eric Wilson published a paper called A Large-Scale Thermal Acoustic Generator. The paper describes how, when granite and other rocks are vibrated, electrons will migrate through the rock and up to the surface. By combining science and music, the builders of the pyramid created a power-generating machine tuned to the natural harmonic of the Earth's vibration that primarily comes from the tidal energy created by the moon's gravity. This technology, created thousands of years ago, could generate unlimited clean energy. But how did they get the energy out? That brings us back to Tesla. His Wardenclyffe Tower was built on top of an aquifer, with copper and iron rods extending down into the water. When electricity was sent into the tower, it was to be transmitted around the world through the atmosphere. The pyramid is also built on an aquifer, and copper pipes and iron rods have recently been discovered there. If the caps...
Well, not only copper pipes and iron rods, but supposedly these huge structures that go 2 kilometers deep into the bedrock. Now, if this is real, and for now, it is not 100%, but if it is, this would change absolutely everything we know about the Egyptians, the pyramids, and free energy.
This has been described first by Christopher Dunn as a Crookes tube, perhaps an electrical bulb. And again, snake throughout every culture, from Asia through Africa, represents electricity, kundalini energy. Here, it looks like it's what somebody said, a condenser, because it's working with electricity. And again, we're not talking wireless electricity, because it is plugged in. We have a creature here. We don't know what this creature is, but the important thing is what the texts say. This is a warning that this is a knowledge, a power that can be abused.
So apparently there could be a chance, a great chance actually, that these builders, the builders of the pyramids, knew something that we don't. And I guess that the fact that this Chinese satellite using radar technology found plasma bubbles on top of the Giza pyramids may actually prove that yes, there's something going on there in terms of energy. Now, there's a couple of reasons why people think this might be fake. And one of them is, it is not peer-reviewed. So it is not official yet. And there's another reason to why people think this might be fake. I know they're talking about the fusion of techniques, but everything I have read suggests that the SAR technology that they use to scan it can resolve to about 40 to 50 meters deep. So 2 kilometers down seems like a huge advancement. And unless they're using some sort of advanced SAR technology, it would make sense that no, they weren't able to scan that deep. However, there are a bunch of people who think this might be real, and for several reasons. One of them is, Turkey has several large underground cities. I see zero reason why Egypt can't be full of them too. Ethan says, honestly, this stumbled me upon something vastly more interesting, the shaft of Osiris. It's somehow under 100 meters of bedrock. Talk to anybody who works at construction. Bedrock is something we can't even barely get through today. So apparently it's not that impossible that there's some sort of massive structure underneath the Giza pyramid. Not only that, this document hasn't been officially peer-reviewed like this one has. This, for instance, is the original document released in 2022 by Filippo Biondi, and in it they do not mention these underground structures. However,
they're claiming that the greatest archaeological discovery was just made at the pyramids. But what does this mean for Christianity? For a long time, the pyramids have had tons of speculation and mystery about their origin. On one side of the spectrum, you have some people that say it was definitely built by humans. Just don't know how they did it. And the other side says it was definitely aliens, a more advanced species that came over and used their advanced technology to build something that within that context and time in history can't be explained. But this latest discovery may reveal something even more mysterious. And it's possible that the narrative that all these pyramids were tombs is all wrong. And interestingly enough, some of these theories may even be explained through scripture. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire. Basically, they used radar Doppler tomography from outer space that they were able to scan to see the foundations of the pyramids, meaning that they now understand what's underneath the pyramids. And what they discovered is rather shocking, if we're going to be honest. This was posted by Jay Anderson, who basically kind of synthesized the press release, and I think he's the one that created these graphics, so I want to make sure we give him a shout out, where they show what's underneath these pyramids using this new technology that can help them scan the ground. Check this out.
The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground.
That's really deep. They're going to the bedrock, meaning the foundation of the earth, which is crazy that the bedrock's so high in Egypt. You know, I didn't expect almost a mile deep, I guess, of just sand and stuff, dirt and sand. And so they're going to the very, very, very deep of the bedrock. And these pyramids have these foundations that we didn't know they had prior to this.
Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza Pyramid.
Okay, so I've always found it odd that they spent all this time, all this money, decades, to just build tombs for dead guys. Like, I understand that the pharaohs were like godlike to them, but to spend all this money, all this resource to build something that was just a glorified burial site for a pharaoh didn't really jive with me. Seemed like something was off. Seemed like a bad waste of resource and time. It just seemed weird. And so now what they're starting to get at is that perhaps these structures are alluding to some more utility for the pyramids than just these places that house the tombs of dead guys.
Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water. I mean, the pyramid itself was already a massive red flag in the ancient Egyptian historical narrative. But now, with this discovery, I think it's become impossible.
And so this is where all the theories start to come out, including Billy Carson's beloved Emerald Tablets.
It's also possible that this spiraling cylindrical series of structures are staircases. And I can't help but think of the channeled writings of Thoth the Atlantean, the Emerald Tablets, speaking of a lost hall of records, a sacred hall of knowledge below the Giza Plateau, the halls of Amenti. Could this be the lost hall of records from the pre-flood era?
And it's interesting to hear him say the Emerald Tablets while at the same time talking about the pre-flood era, which we're definitely going to get to a little later in this video. And so everyone's favorite drunk uncle had to get in on this. This is Alex Jones, and he posted this rendition of what the foundation of it looks like. I don't know if he put this together or AI did, but this is rather spectacular. I gotta admit it. And some people even began drawing the similarities between this image and the Washington Monument and the connection of something inside of the human spirit to want to create long, tall, and deep pillars. Now, this has been an absolute boom in the woohoo community, with some even pointing to the similarities of earthing and plants and the energy of the earth being able to be harnessed by you and I. In response to the video that we looked at earlier, check out this reaction. I am reminded of these copper coil wrapped cylindrical sticks gifted to me by a friend. I was told they create some kind of an energetic effect that enhances the health and vitality of the plants. I'm not sure how they connected this to the pyramids, but I'm here for it. Needless to say, from now until they actually reveal all of their archaeological discoveries, this is a great time for the Billy Carsons of the world to have a woo-woo course. And like many things that are theories and even scams, they tend to be anchored in some degree of truth. And this is where we get into the theory that the pyramids weren't just glorified tombs for powerful dead guys, that the pyramids were actually used to harvest energy. That's right. And this is not just some crazy conspiracy. This was apparently believed by engineer Nikola Tesla. And here's a breakdown from the Y files of the theory that Nikola Tesla believed regarding this energy and how it was harvested. Check this out.
Acoustic engineers have determined the gallery resonates at 440 hertz and naturally emits an F-sharp chord. 440 hertz and the F-sharp chord have been connected to a lot of woo-woo ideas, but there's a reason for that. It's considered a sound that resonates in harmony with the earth. The builders of the pyramid knew this. Longtime Mac users will recognize this sacred chord. At the top of the gallery.
That's crazy. Now, there's a whole theory about modern music and potentially retuning certain songs to be more in line with the earth. That's a whole thing that mixing engineers talk about a lot. And so it's interesting that this is in tune and the Mac is in tune and that there's this whole connection with all of it.
The gallery is a small shaft leading to the king's chamber. The opening is 8.4 by 4.8 inches. This is the perfect size for hydrogen microwaves to pass into the king's chamber, which also resonates at 440 hertz and F-sharp. Above the king's chamber are 5 layers of granite beams, stacked and separated by air gaps. This is called the relieving chamber because it was believed that this interior structure relieved the weight of the pyramid. That's not what it does. The beams are smooth on 3 sides, but rough cut on the top. Christopher Dunn believes the reason for the rough cut is this is how the beams were tuned. The builders could vibrate the granite beams and slowly chip away at the stone until they resonated with an F-sharp chord, which they do. The king's chamber is what's known as a Helmholtz resonator. When you blow air across the top of a bottle and create sound, that's a Helmholtz resonator. Change the volume of liquid in the bottle, or change the volume of stone within the chamber, you change the pitch. The entire complex is a giant musical instrument. Now, some skeptics reluctantly agree that the Great Pyramid has musical properties. But for skeptics to consider the pyramid as a power plant, they would need evidence to show that a giant stone pyramid would respond to electromagnetic energy.
Okay.
There was no...
Okay. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how we make the leap from it vibrating to it being a power plant. Within just making this video, there's some very obvious things that our buddy from Why Not Files got completely wrong. For starters, the F-sharp chord is not 440 frequency. The F-sharp note is also not 440 frequency. Okay, it's 369 hertz. Every single note on a piano makes a specific frequency when you hit it. Respectfully, it makes me question how much of the rest of the video is inaccurate based on this whole, the tombs are connected to 440 hertz when he's saying F-sharp chords, and that's not how chords work, nor is this the actual frequencies of the notes. But that's neither here nor there.
Whether true or not, it's scientifically possible that the Great Pyramid was a structure for creating, harnessing, and focusing energy. The exterior was made of material that insulates electricity. The interior was made of material that conducts electricity. The chambers were made of material that creates electricity. The next piece of evidence is the pyramid's ability to focus EM energy. In 2018, scientists used radio waves at different frequencies to see if the Great Pyramid would interact with electromagnetic waves of a resonant length. Their experiments proved that in a resonant state, the pyramid can concentrate electromagnetic energy in the internal chambers as well as under its base. Resonance in the pyramid can be induced by radio waves with the lengths ranging from 200 to 600 meters. The closer to 200 meters, the more dramatic the effect. A year after that, in 2019, Eric Wilson published a paper called A Large-Scale Thermal Acoustic Generator. The paper describes how, when granite and other rocks are vibrated, electrons will migrate through the rock and up to the surface. By combining science and music, the builders of the pyramid created a power-generating machine tuned to the natural harmonic of the Earth's vibration that primarily comes from the tidal energy created by the moon's gravity. This technology, created thousands of years ago, could generate unlimited clean energy. But how did they get the energy out? That brings us back to Tesla.
So regardless on the theories around frequencies and whether the pyramids can harvest energy, you're kind of left with two different views of this. Before I explain those, what we do know is that it likely was not ancient Egyptians that had this sort of revolutionary technology. So we're kind of left with two possibilities. One is that it was some other more advanced civilization that built these sorts of things that got wiped out by the flood. That's also referenced in the Bible and referenced in many other stories from antiquity. Or it was aliens. And the alien story tends to be very compelling. This is where Billy Carson gets his emerald tablets from. This is where a lot of people find intrigue in that another species that's more technologically advanced came down and gave humans this advanced technology. But there's only one problem with that. And my buddy, Nate Sala from Wise Disciple, who's actually going to be at the Blessed God Summit, more on that later, did a great job explaining why the idea of aliens coming here is unlikely. Check this out.
We even know on a very limited scale that there are other beings that God has created who, it appears, do not share our unique quality of being made in the image of God. I'm referring to angels right now. So, is it possible for there to be other beings that God has created somewhere else in the universe? And the answer is yes, of course, it's possible. But that's not the question to ask, in my opinion. I think a better question to ask is it plausible that the experiences that folks are having are with alien beings from another planet in our universe? And as far as I can understand, as I understand the issue, the answer is no, it is not plausible. There's a really great book. It's called The Privileged Planet. Well, according to the authors of The Privileged Planet, the Earth fits into the Goldilocks zone, which is a rare environment in the universe for life to thrive. As far as we can tell, only our planet fits into this Goldilocks zone. There does not appear to be another Goldilocks zone out there in the observable universe. So that's why I say this is not plausible that there are alien beings from another planet. But, okay, let's concede that for argument's sake. Let's say they do exist. Okay, well, now they need to travel all the way here. The problem is the nearest galaxy is something like 25,000 years away, and that's if the spaceship travels at the speed of light. So now we're talking about beings that would have to live unbelievably ridiculous long periods of time and in order to survive getting here. And that's why I say it's unlikely. It's implausible that there are alien beings from some other planet in a galaxy far, far away traveling here. Now, maybe we're not dealing with interstellar travel, right? Maybe we're dealing with interdimensional travel. Okay, that's more interesting because the Bible appears to touch on this notion, right? Okay, Christians in the audience, here's a question for you. Where is heaven located? If you look at the creation account in Genesis and you sort of, reflect on what we know about science, well, then clearly God created the universe at a finite moment in the past. This means that space and time and matter, all these things came into existence at some point. And if you rewind time enough down to the moment of creation, what you have before creation, if I can use those words to make sense of that moment, what that is an environment outside of space, time, and matter. To the best of our knowledge, to me, this is another dimension.
He goes on to point out that in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, the Apostle Paul, who's writing the church in Ephesus, kind of alludes to this fairly clearly in verse 12. He says, we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. That there is an unseen world that is happening. And is it possible that spirits coming from the unseen world are able to impact different parts of history from a different dimension into our dimension? Well, I would argue yes. I would argue, just like Nate did, that this is actually more plausible than this idea that aliens came and gave Egyptians sophisticated tools that we don't have access to today. And that's how they were able to build these super mile deep pillars that the pyramids then stood on top of. And they were potentially even able to use some form of energy from these pyramids. And if you think about it, that is a beautiful part about the gospel narrative. The idea that Jesus, who is God, Yahweh, is immaterial and then comes in a material physical body, lives the life we couldn't live, dies the death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sins, then rises on the third day and empowers us to usher in heaven on this side of eternity. The same way we see him in the Lord's Prayer say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Heaven is another realm. Heaven is not a physical place, though there will be a new heaven and new earth when Jesus returns. That's the beautiful part. And all of us who are followers of Jesus get to get in on this mission with him. And that is exactly the heart of what we're attempting to do with the Bless God Summit. Like I told you guys, my buddy Nate Sala is going to be there. We have 3 days. Day one is all about worldview.